It's my favorite button. All right, everybody. I do believe we are live. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is August 30th. I cannot believe it is almost the end of summer. Kids are in school. People are winding down on their summer vacations or maybe winter vacations if you're Jamie here. I think it's winter where you are, right?
Correct. It is indeed.
Sorry, hemispheres are a challenge to me. So is elevation. We can talk about that another time, though. So for those of you that have never been here before, welcome. I am Steve Taylor. I'm the host of MSP Webinars. I'm glad you could make it. We've got a really good one today. Some quick housekeeping. For those of you in attendance on Zoom, if you hover over the video, there should be a little green button that pops up on the top somewhere that says ask a question or Q&A, something along those lines. Please use that to ask any questions throughout the webinar. I will do Q&A at the end. You can also vote on other people's questions, comment on the questions to elaborate further, that type of stuff. So feel free to use all that. Next week, we have SolarWinds Backup, which is one of the more popular backup solutions that MSPs are offering. And I think it's going to be really cool to learn about their backup offering. We've also got a couple of member breakout sessions. We're going to talk about pricing your MSP offering, and we're going to discuss our master service agreements, our MSAs. We're not going to do a breakout session on Monday, and we're not going to have a webinar on Tuesday. Monday's Labor Day. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the day or two that you decide to take off. Today, however, we're joined by Jamie from Invarosoft, and he's going to teach us about this really cool app that you can install on all of your end user computers or even their smartphones and tablets. And if you stay to the end, I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can save almost half off the price just by being a member of MSP Webinars. So Jamie, if you could please take it away, show us what you got here, man.
Sure. And hi, Steve. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending, and it's great to be here. So for the second time to show you what we're doing. So I'll share my device at this point. Share screen. Can you see the presentation, Steve?
Looks good.
Alrighty. So what I'm going to do today, guys, is go through a quick presentation. And then we can get stuck into a more formal Q&A with Steve. And at that point in time, I'll be going through our portal, of which I can show you sort of the back end of our solution and the app itself, etc. So in terms of setting the scene, I actually, just like you guys, have an MSP that I've been battling away to grow over the last 18 years with my brother. And I'm pleased to say we've managed to grow that business to over 40 staff and 5,000 desktops and laptops under management organically. So today, I want to tell you a quick story about how my MSP doubled in size by replacing email support with an app. So back in 2009, we were getting far too many calls for support. Our clients were definitely not using the PSA web portal to log tickets. In fact, we were getting a lot of calls to our mobiles, which was incredibly frustrating. Clients were complaining about the visibility of our services. Engineer productivity was being negatively affected by all of this. And like many of you, we had lots of competitors in our market. So what we decided to do was look at our software stack, and we identified that email was definitely an area that we could improve upon. So what we decided to do was replace email support with an app. And the reason we did this is because we found that email was hard to remember across all the devices that we were managing. It was offering no visible value and therefore was lowering the customer experience. It was increasing calls. It was causing a lot of double handling because often when you get email tickets, it never seems to come through with the right information. Email is fundamentally just a blank piece of paper. where the user has to decide what they're putting in the subject line and the body of the email, which inevitably isn't the right information. And that was therefore reducing our engineer productivity. And finally, the email itself is not sticky. It's not able to be customized. And what we found in a sales situation is that it's definitely not a differentiator when you're trying to sell your services. So what we decided to do was build IT Support Panel as a one pane of glass app for all of our IT services. And what you can do with the app is customize the brand, the button, the news, the apps across your Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android devices. And you can do that customization at a client level, a group level, or user or agent level. So highly customizable. And so you can log tickets. It synchronizes with ConnectWise, Autotask, and any ticketing system. You can do ticket type, subtype, etc., and you get all that information through on the ticket. You also get the host name. That's what it looks like when you right-click the actual IT button in the task tray. So you've got that information at your fingertips in the ticket. A new feature that came out since we've last spoken, Steve, is you can take a screenshot now. And so that's basically like Snagit, and you can take unlimited screenshots as they're logging the ticket. So you just draw a square around what you need, and it goes through, which I'll show you a little bit later. We brought out custom forms, so now you can attach custom forms to the ticket types, so that are perfect for new user requests. You can attach them to ticket type and to client. And so one of the battles that we all have, of course, as MSPs is trying to get these companies to fill in the templated Word documents that we've given them to give us that information for user requests. I think setting up new users, and my 18 years of an MSP has always been the one area where there's just so much detail in regards to doing it correctly that there can be mistakes from time to time. So the more you get the right information the first time, the better, and custom forms enables you to do that. The feature that we've always had is IT News Panel. So you're able to flick news articles in this section here across the app, and you can have unlimited collections. They link to URLs, and it's a great way of getting more eyeballs across what's going on in your environment. Normally, you're able to only communicate to the main contacts of your clients via email. Having News Panel there is a wonderful way of being able to communicate with your staff. So with the clients of your and the end users of those clients. You also have push, which I'll show you in a second. You've got social links down here. And one of the exciting things that we'll be bringing out next year is basically a competitor to Smileback or SimpleSat. So we'll be looking at integrating the MPS and CSAT capabilities into our product as part of IT News Panel. So there won't be any additional cost for that. One of the exciting things about that particular feature is that you'll then be able to use push notifications to actually send out and schedule surveys, etc., which I think is going to be incredibly powerful to cut through the noise of email. So moving on, push notifications. This is one of our latest features. It's, I guess, one of the more unique things that we're offering as part of this solution. And as I said, it really is an opportunity to cut through the noise of email. You can now send branded push notifications. These are examples of Windows. So you can also do iOS and Android, and we've got Mac coming later in the year. But what you can do is send it through as a larger dialogue message like this, fully branded. You can select from these colors in regards to matching the severity or whatever the status of what you're sending through is. You can also send a toast message, which is slightly smaller, which pops up in the bottom right of your screen, and perfect for talking about outages, sales, user alerts, the latest crypto, whatever it happens to be. It really is a wonderful methodology because it pops up on the screen. To get rid of it, they have to click OK. And you can send that through to groups. So you can pre-create groups of people, such as your main contacts. So if you just need to send alerts through to them, or all users or one user. You've got full flexibility over what you do there, which is fantastic. So we've now got a ticket type manager. That was probably an obscure feature, but incredibly powerful in the sense that now with your ticket type manager, you can actually hide ticket types. So because our product is a client-facing product, a lot of the ticket types that MSPs create don't tend to be client-facing. So instead of having to worry about configuring your ticket types in the actual PSA, you just leave those, we sync them across, and you use our ticket type manager to hide ticket types. So if you've got one, a lot of people have one that says must change and asterisks outside it. Of course, you can just quickly go to that and hide that ticket type, and it won't appear in the app. And our ticket type manager forms a big part of some of the allocation that we're doing. I'll talk about in a second. So we've got our approvals feature that's coming the end of Q3 is the goal. So what you'll be able to do in the ticket type manager here is there'll be a button here which enables you to assign approvers to ticket types. And so what that will mean is that when a user logs a ticket for something that the client has deemed important and that they need to authorize, the approver that you've assigned, and you can have multiple approvers, will get an email, and they'll have to click approve to or authorize to ensure that the ticket actually gets processed. So we're really excited about that feature. That's definitely come from partner feedback. So of course we've got IT Apps Panel, which has always been there. This is our way of solving the problem of the messy desktop. So you can see these apps at the bottom here. These are fundamentally the client's apps, and it's designed as a way of solving the problem of the messy desktop. So in this day and age, you've got SaaS apps all configured in the browser. You have and bookmark potentially in that browser. You've got network apps sitting there on the desktop. So it's becoming quite messy. So in terms of adding more value and saying to a client, look, I'll make your life a lot easier. You just go to the IT button, you can get through to these apps, and it creates a much stickier experience for what you're creating here. Now, the key point is that you can create URL, command line, RDS, Citrix, etc. So it really isn't just a linking tool. You can actually then do things like remapping network drives and launching other apps through IT Apps Panel. So as I said, we're connecting with Autotask ConnectWise. We'll be adding more and more PSAs as time goes by. We do have a ticketing agnostic version, which is one of the key features that has arrived since we last spoke, Steve, and what I'll be showing you a little bit today on how that one works. Okay, so in terms of the actual roadmap itself, we've got some exciting things coming in Q3, Q4, and of course next year. Coming in Q3, we've got a Bigger Brains integration where we're creating a dedicated button which will auto-authenticate users into the Bigger Brains portal. We're also doing the same thing with YSync, so creating a dedicated button so your users, if you're using that product, when they click the YSync button, it'll authenticate them through to the YSync portal so that they can see invoices and quotes and all those sorts of things. And obviously the scope there is to reduce friction and the time it takes to actually get in and see these things. IT Support Panel is designed to be that one pane of glass that you can get access to anything and everywhere, but you just need to, and so all you need to do is train the user to go to the IT button. The IT Glue integration should be coming in Q4. We're just waiting on the updated API from those guys. Really, really excited by this one. That will enable you to do a series of things that I'll explain in a second. And TigerPaw integration is scheduled for Q4 at this stage. So we'll be working through that and we'll advise accordingly. Now, the exciting thing that we're releasing, firstly, IT Learning Panel, that will be really an integrated, rather than a button that logs you into Bigger Brains, we'll be bringing out an ability to have all the training videos accessed through the portal in a customized pop-up window. They will then link through to a URL to play those, but ultimately you can really then provide a more comprehensive e-learning experience. Now with IT Glue, this is probably the one where we're really excited about, because what we're basically going to be able to do is we are building our own documentation engine to complement the documentation tools that are out there. And what it'll enable us to do is deliver self-service and smart engineer. So imagine a scenario where the user opens the app, clicks a ticket type, and either a window pops up and explains to them, hey, can you do these 3 things? So that'll be more of a prompt message, which you would create in our documentation little engine. Or you can, with the API with IT Glue and other documentation platforms over time, you'll be able to assign an article to that ticket type. So conversely, you can get the user to actually read the article, and that's synchronized with IT Glue. So it also helps them from a self-service perspective. So we're really excited by that one because I think over time that's going to really incrementally eat away at some of the tickets that get logged and improve productivity. Now, aside from that, you've also got smart engineers. So that concept is where you would assign these articles to ticket types and clients. And so when the actual ticket is logged, the user doesn't know this, but it's actually attaching the articles to the ticket type. So as the engineer are sitting there working on the ticket, if your team can't remember the 10-step process to set up a particular user or whatever it happens to be, instead of wasting time searching IT Glue for that particular information, the article link will just be there, or multiple links depending on what you've assigned. And so then they can just immediately click on that. And so we also think that's going to be a great productivity saver. And the goal is to release that Q4. But self-service is the big one out of all of that. And I'm really excited by it. So getting back to the story, what we found was that clients absolutely love that one pane of glass experience. No longer did they have to go to stickers or mouse pads or pens or URLs to get access to your details. They have a beautiful app across all devices. You can do that. You can train them on just going to an IT button fundamentally, and it just makes their life easier. I think one of the things we've found talking to MSPs, of course, is that they're not testing it with a client when they're trialing, and so they're not getting that feedback. So they're sort of putting their technical pane of glass over how they see the product. But from experience and from our partners as well, once you start giving this to end customers, you really see that they love that experience. And that's what we found. And so the result for our MSP was significant. We had happier clients. We reduced churn because they were happier. It increased our referrals because when clients and users would leave that business, go to another business, and then have to email, and it was a sort of a convoluted process, you'd get those referrals back. It increased our profit because it was reducing our calls by 50%, which was amazing. And of course, by replacing email, we were getting the right information the first time, which therefore increased our engineer productivity. We're able to route these tickets with rules to the right people and right departments, etc. And at the heart of it all was that we realized fairly early on that we should use this as a competitive differentiator. And so we embedded it through all of our proposals, and it's very much part of the DNA of how we present our services. It's our purple cow, I like to say, which is a book by Seth Godin. I do recommend you read. And so much so that we actually were able to increase our monthly support from $80,000 a month to almost $240,000. That is just monthly support. That's not managed services like Office 365, etc. And we continue to win more business doing that. So as we talk about, as we go through this webinar, I guess you just need to ask yourself the question, are you ready to differentiate and grow? If you are, we'd love for you to join the community. We are over 100 partners. It's around 100,000 agents and growing in a short period of time. So it's definitely starting to catch on. And as Steve mentioned, we've got a great deal, which we'll expand a little bit later in the presentation, where you almost get 50% off. So that is the end of my little presentation. Happy to now go through a little demo, Steve. Were there any initial questions?
Initial questions, no. I want to see the demo before I start to beat you up.
All right. I've got extra padding on for that, so all good.
Good.
So this is it. I'll just make sure that it's stayed logged in. So this is basically the portal. When you go through and you do a setup, you go through a wizard, and it helps you actually set up to get to this point. It synchronizes the data if you're using the PSA version. If it's the ticket agnostic version, the PSA agnostic version, sorry, we actually create the login for you, and then you just come in here and can start configuring the actual product. So conceptually, what's actually going on here with the product, before I just get into the features, because it is designed to be very easy to configure, but just conceptually, is that when you are putting clients into the system, they are all allocated with a client activation code. And so in this particular instance, it's either synchronized with the API, or you upload your clients to the system. Every time you upload a client, you get an activation code. That is really the power of how we are able to do the allocation and the configuration of our app throughout the product at that client level down to the agent user level. So fundamentally, you have users that you then set up underneath a client, and that's where you start to have this ability to configure the product at that granular level. So you can start to allocate appearances, button collection, IT apps collection, news collection, etc. From that perspective. So one of the great things about the product itself, so when you come through to configuration, is that under this email version, you fundamentally submitting the tickets via email, which is a templated scenario. Or if you've created, this is something you would need to create on your end, a JSON or XML, you can do that as well. But as you can see here, you've got the destination email, which tends to be support at whatever it happens to be. Now, one of the cool things about the ticketing PSA agnostic version is, of course, and this is a scenario for those that potentially might be directing traffic in different directions. So if you have a scenario where you're using Continuum or Benchmark 365 or any of these solutions where it's basically, I guess, an outsourced service desk, you can actually, and what we've noticed is a lot of MSPs will split up. Well, those clients I'll have under that scenario, so they get the 24/7 support, and these clients I'm just going to deal with directly. So for those that were on the outsource model, you can actually come in here at a client level and set a different destination of where those tickets go. So conceptually, you've got the one app, you can load it out to wherever it needs to go. For those that are using the outsourced help desk scenario, you can also then create a button collection, assign that to the client. And so when you open up the app, the contact details for the people that are using the outsourced are different from the ones that are actually using your day-to-day service. So that's sort of a conceptual way of why being able to customize something like this at that level is quite important, so that you can just have that one pane of glass to give to the customer, but they're getting only what they need to see. And the tickets are going in the right direction. So that's fundamentally a little bit about client activation code, and configuration at that level. I'll pause. I could keep going on, but you jump in, Steve.
So I think the biggest question I'm going to have for you is, as an MSP, I feel like more and more vendors are popping up and trying to get a piece of my pie. And maybe today my costs are $30 a user, but now you want to sell me this support panel and Some other company is going to want to sell me like bigger brains that now they want to sell me end user training. So that's another, dollar per user per month. And, so all of these vendors are coming to us with, hey, look, it's just, 50 cents a user. It's just $1 a user. And all of these things are adding up. So what do you say to those of us that say, you know what, we've already got the system tray through our RMM tool. It already lets us have our customers create tickets, share screenshots, even do some self-service on troubleshooting. If we want to make something that says reset print spooler because something goofs up on their computer frequently enough that we don't want to have to keep fixing it ourselves. Why do we need you? Why do we need to give you some of our money?
Absolutely. Look, and I guess you certainly shouldn't be investing in things just for the sake of it. And of course,
right.
You probably find that these products arrive because they are fundamentally solving a problem. And so then you will have competitors of those products in the different categories. I guess to answer, I guess there's two questions there in terms of why you need it, and of course, well, if you are going to do that, why is it any different from an RMM solution? So, I guess the first scenario is that we fundamentally believe that the end user does not have a one pane of glass to access all your IT services, and they are crying out for it to make their experience of you, your managed services, a lot easier. Fundamentally, other than, and I know the RMM agent's there, but really there is no one place they can go to get access to everything that you're offering and all the portals that you're offering. So we're in the market as a new category that solves a different problem than a lot of the other vendors that are out there. And so it probably feels like, oh, here's another thing. Well, yeah, it is another thing, but this is the evolution of the industry. And this is something as maybe a slightly more medium-sized MSP. To be able to grow your business, you need to start to tick off all the different components to drive productivity and efficiencies. So you certainly shouldn't be looking at it as a cost. But over time, you've got to look at getting your solution stack correct. So when you look at the presentation I talked about before and how we were looking at our stack, you need to get your fundamentals right first. You need to, at some point, have a ticketing system, and if it lends itself going to the full PSA solution, then that could be the way to go. But you need your one pane of glass, and usually that tends to be around ticketing, CRM, and your RMM tool. Those are the core things that you need to really run an MSP and scale and without losing control. So then you start
you're talking about my one pane of glass.
Correct. So the MSP needs their one pane of glass to run.
Right.
And so I think that's really important. So then you've got things like IT glue, as we've mentioned, documentation, and they're all born out of solving problems that perhaps the incumbent solutions haven't tackled. And what we realized when we invented it, and we've told you the story just before, but is that really there was nothing there for the end customer to have one pane of glass. And so as I lean into describing why the RMM tool, it's just not in the same, I guess.
Well, but if you look at Autotask PSA or Wise Manage, they have an end user portal.
Correct. So what I was going to say was that the problem is that it is very basic in terms of the functionality. So if you just see what Invarosoft has created as a ticket logging tool, then yes, just use your RMM. Go for it. But it's not that. It is designed to be a one pane of glass experience. That's why we have custom forms. That's why we have push notifications. That's why we're doing all the integrations with all the other vendors so that you can confidently deliver an app across all devices and say, that's where you go to get access to all my awesomeness and all the portals that I'm creating. And the problem with an RMM tool is that utilization is very low, because what I've found, whether we like it or not, as in the technical side of things, is that people love beautiful looking, nice things. And that's why Apple attracts the type of customers it attracts, and Android tends to attract technical people. But we're selling to people that are not technical, and they love things that look familiar. And so when they open the app and they see all your branding, which of course the RMM tools, the apps that you get there with AEM, etc., are very basic. It's not a glamorous experience for you in the IT. Yes, you can log a ticket, but the screenshotting tools, they're not sort of snag it. You kind of take the whole screen. You can only do one. It does work sometimes, it doesn't, is the feedback we're getting. But aside from that, that's fundamentally the core of what it can do. When you start thinking about custom forms, and you start thinking about news, and you start thinking about apps, and the big one is when you start thinking about customizing something per client, which makes your service incredibly sticky. I can tell you from experience, once you configure it for them, they start loving it even more, because it becomes something for them, not a tool that is really for you that you're just giving to them. The other problem with an RMM tool is that they're not focused on that side of things, and they don't charge for it. So their roadmap's going to be slow, and innovation around that's going to be slow, and it's centric around their ecosystem. But you're not just using tools in their ecosystem. You are using IT Glue. You are using BrightGauge. You are using the accounting software, YSync or Connect Booster, whatever it happens to be. You're using all these tools, and they all have web portals. And they all have some value at an end user in those web portals. Even Orvik, we've been talking to, has as a network monitoring tool, has client portals for the actual client, not the partner, but the actual client.
So maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I have weird clients, but my clients don't care. Like they don't want to log into any of my tools. They don't even want to use my existing portal with my PSA. They just want to call me and tell me there's an issue. So and I know that you've got the IT apps panel, but it feels like we're just adding extra steps. Nobody wants to open up the Steve Taylor app just to access Excel when they can put Excel right there on their desktop, or a bookmark to Infusionsoft or whatever it is that they use right on their desktop.
So my experience of doing it and actually working with customers, because we invented it in 2009, is completely the opposite. So no, that's not the case. They actually do want something that's easy to use. And the reason is because email, that end users will go wherever the easiest way is to get support. This is why you'll get a lot of calls. This is why you'll get a lot of emails. And as I said before, the problem with email is you don't get the right information. If you give them a simple IT button and an app, they use it. Like it just is what it is. Now, here's my philosophy of why the RMM tool hasn't been used. And it's no one's fault specifically, but it shows what I'm starting to realize, a misunderstanding of the behavior of an end user. So the reason why our product gets high utilization and other products don't, RMM and competitors, is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, and probably the main reason, is that the actual task tray button that most MSPs use is a very cut down version of their logo. Now, unfortunately, most people's logos are not designed to fit in a box 15 by 15 pixels. And so what actually ends up happening is you get a very blurry kind of blue, green, whatever it happens to be, squiggly something or other in that button. So the RMM tools fundamentally never really talk to you about it. It just gives you the opportunity, of course, to change the icon. You change the icon to something that is very hard to describe. So imagine actually sitting there, you've got 500 devices under management, and you're trying to explain to them to go to the blue squiggly kind of shaded out S thing. Now, you've got to remember that every month, each one of your clients is transitioning through stuff, right? So they'll have a little churn with their employees. So there's new people coming on board every year. So by the end of a year, you've actually supporting a whole, different end user base. Now, unless you're sitting there training them all the time on going to that particular button, you're relying on the actual client themselves to actually do that. And so what actually happens is that they all forget where it is. They can't find it. They can't see it easily, and they don't use it. And that psychology around having a button that's easy to find and easy to understand is super important. This is why we actually called it IT Support Panel. It was ticking hitting two birds with one stone, in the sense that it wasn't just about having some random brand. Our psychology was like, what is the button that people are genuinely going to click on and find and not have to think about in terms of explaining it to someone? And whether we like it or not, they're not calling us by our brand names as MSPs. They're calling us just the IT guys fundamentally. And so IT is a very common thing that they will just understand. And I don't want to labor on that point, but it is really important, because that's the psychology. That's why the utilization is so high, and that's why it's worked so well. And so until you actually ask a customer and show it to them, then that's the feedback that you should be trusting. You certainly shouldn't be making your own observation on what you think it is until you've got the feedback from the customer. Because I can tell you it's very different from what you're thinking. And I don't mean you, Steve, I just mean in general, about what the app can do. So I've personally found, and across our partners, just a different experience. When you give them something easy, they will use it. And that's why productivity goes up.
Okay. So I know that you added I'm going to call it PSA agnostic version, where, if you're using Kaseya BMS or Synchro, as long as the PSA can accept an email to create a ticket, this will at least create the tickets for them.
Correct.
Now, I've got to ask, why did we go the PSA agnostic route when, in theory, if we're trying to make it easier for them, of course it thinks I said, "Hey Siri," and how all my apps go crazy. So in theory, if we're trying to make it easier for them, why are we only giving them half of the picture? Why are we giving them the ability to create a ticket, but not view their tickets or update their tickets in that PSA agnostic version? Because can't they do all of that with the Autotask or ConnectWise connected versions?
In terms of viewing tickets, no, you're still creating a button to go through to the portal, and of course over time you'll just auto log them in to see that. So the reason why we did it straight off the bat is because some of these PSAs don't even have APIs for us to do that. End of story.
Okay.
We were hitting roadblocks left, right, and center, so we thought, all right, in our roadmap journey, let's tick off ticketing agnostic so that people can get on board and use the product straight away. That sort of ensures that no one's missing out on the technology, because really the technology is the same. We're just really talking about a connector here to log the tickets and synchronize through. And so we thought we'll tick that off first, and then we'll be aggressive at working through all these different PSAs. So obviously Tiger Paw's next, but some of them don't have APIs, and it's also the other reason, I guess, is that we were being asked by partners for a lot of features. And so we had to just make decisions to prioritize. Well, let's make the product robust and give a lot more great features. Let's get a ticketing agnostic one to tick that off, and then we'll progress through. So I would say by the end of next year, most of the common PSAs are integrated at API level.
So obviously my opinion is that Kaseya BMS is going to quickly become one of the more popular PSAs. Do they have an API that you can work with? Because I know I beat you up about making them next last time you were on.
No, correct. And we actually found it difficult to get that done. So if you have a contact, we can keep pushing that. We've been our MSP one, Kaseya most innovative partner we won it 2 years, not 2 separate years. So we've been a huge Kaseya user ourselves. So we actually have a fairly deep relationship with these guys. But it has been difficult to get that process going, and it probably more as a people thing rather than a technical thing. So because of the difficulty, we just sort of parked it to the side and went, well, we'll just, anybody that's using it, you can use the ticketing agnostic, PSA agnostic version, and we'll just keep having to work with them to get that done.
I'll make an introduction for you later on.
That'd be great.
So, okay, so some of the PSAs are just hard to work with, so PSA agnostic makes sense. So now I know you said that you can do custom forms. So whoopee, custom forms, right? Like, how cool are these forms actually able to get when it comes to the power of this form and what information it's going to give me, the MSP?
Well, look, it's basically, this is me now going to the portal. So you go to IT support panel, you come to forms, you then create forms of which you can allocate to a ticket type and to a client. It's kind of like Survey Monkey. So you then basically just adding questions to whatever the form is. Now, what you can do is you have your question, you can have a single line box, multi-line list, drop down, true, false, all that sort of thing. And we'll just keep iterating and changing and making it better over time. You can have placeholder information. You can have the help text. So when you're actually in the app itself, this is what a form looks like. So this is the placeholder. This is the help text. They highlight over and they can see that. So, I mean, is it beautiful? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty basic at this stage. We can work on the design of it, but ultimately,
so the forms. So the forms, they are pretty powerful. So we can do drop downs, multiple checkboxes, or radial buttons for a single choice. Yes, no.
Correct.
So,
correct.
All right. So these things.
And it's important to note that I'll just quickly say, sorry, mate, that they are by default compulsory, the questions. We thought we'd do it at a question level. Just with everything in our product, we're trying to be quite granular. So you have that flexibility. And that's important as well. So you can't log the ticket if there are answers that are required and they haven't been filled in.
Okay, so what PSA are you using, Jamie?
In our MSP?
Yes.
We actually custom built a PSA, which is crazy, but we've been around for 18 years. And coming from Australia, for anyone wondering why the heck would you do that? Well, the big vendors didn't have presence in Australia for a long, long time. And we had already built a whole lot of innovative things and decided to build our own. So, yeah, unfortunately, we've done that, but it's working for us at this point. Okay.
So let's pretend you use one someone's heard of, like Autotask or ConnectWise.
Yes.
When an end user is filling out this form,
yep,
like, where does that information go? Does that just go into the description, the body of the ticket?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So it's all visible. I'm not sure if any of these had a form in it. Let's have a look. So basically, yeah, it's just coming through on the description of the ticket, and that's also coming through with the host name as well, and any information. So this is the form answers that are coming through.
Perfect. Okay. So that's helpful because that, all right, I've been beating you up for long enough. I'll say something nice now. Okay. So for those of you that want to be able to scale your MSP, you need to be able to standardize. So, that means, everyone gets a, Sophos or Meraki or whatever, whatever brand you're going to use, everyone gets that same brand. So that way you go to one portal and you manage all your firewalls, all your switches, all your APs, etc. You only have to go to one place to get all the workstations or servers repaired. When it comes to this type of stuff, I have found it incredibly difficult to train my end users the quote right way to let me know when they hire somebody new. And maybe that's just because I don't have a form or something standardized in place. Well, okay. So now if we give them a form to fill out within this IT support panel that literally says, okay, I'm setting up a new user. Boom, here's everything I need to know. What's their name? What email address do you want them to have? What password do you want them to have, or should I make it up, or all that type of stuff? What department are they in? So now I know what shares they need to have, or what groups they need to be part of for security permissions. Um, what type of computer do they need? A desktop or a laptop? That type of stuff. So the more you can standardize on these forms, the easier you can make it for yourself as an MSP across all of your clients.
Correct.
So,
And I'll say there that you can, so that's the ticket type setup new user, of course, whatever it is you've labeled it, but you do it per client. So it's not one form that has to suit everybody. It's a form per client. And we all know
or a form across all the clients. That's fine too, right?
Yeah, you could do that if you wanted to, of course. But obviously, there are just some clients, tends to be larger ones, that have a more complicated set of information you need before you can do the setup.
Well, sure, but let's look at this from a more global type of thing. What is your problem? What were you doing when the problem happened? Provide us a screenshot of the error message, that type of stuff.
Yep.
I would assume that can the screenshot be integrated with a form somehow?
So yeah, so you would it's just all here. So effectively, let's say I've filled in that form, of which you can go back into it and manage it. You then say, here's the error message. It's a good looking error message, just quietly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So attach that, and you can keep doing it. And that's one of the differences between the RMM tools. You can't do the Snagit type thing, and you can't actually keep attaching multiple attachments to it.
So I'll say that with the ability for you to say, build a form for your issues, your problems, so that way if somebody chooses to create a ticket based on I have a problem, and maybe that's what you call the form, I don't know, if we are saying that the end users need something easy and simple and pretty, I have a problem, it doesn't get any easier than that, right? And if we put is the error message still visible on your computer? Yes, please don't forget to take a screenshot. That so if they select no, well, we at least asked, so now we know the answer is no. They already clicked the OK button and it went away. Correct. But the more information that you can put in that form to make your life easier as a technician at that point, whether you're the business owner or not, sometimes you got to be the tech and do the work, right? To make your life easier as the technician, that's going to bring it that much closer to resolution for your end user, the more you know right from the beginning.
Absolutely. And that's the forms feature, I have to say, has been incredibly popular, and yeah, people are loving it. So we'll keep integrating that. I mean, the evolution of forms will be building it into workflows. Tends to be larger businesses that are doing that. So if you've got SharePoint workflow, etc., we'll start doing smarts around that. But at the very heart of it, as an MSP day in, day out, I actually think new user requests, I alluded to it before, is one of the most common areas that clients get frustrated about, setting up the new users. And part of it is just the process of never getting the right information. And I mean, I don't know how, in 18 years, how many people proactively sort of go, right, I've got a user starting in like a month. They never do that. It's always last minute. You're always scrambling to get the right information. So this is where you can standardize and say, to set up new users, you need to log a ticket through the app and you need to give us that right information. Otherwise, we can't proceed. As a general rule, obviously they can give you a ring, etc. But I concur with everything you're saying. And that's where you've just got to start being creative around how you actually do this. And you can see that, Steve, with your concept of like, I could, if I create a form, even if it's just a short one, to say, can you give me this bit of information, this, it's all adding value. It's ensuring you're getting the right info. And that's where it starts to sort of merge or blend into the self-service concept of sometimes you actually just want them to, you're trying to cut down those common things. If they just did these 3 things, it could be a reboot, it could be whatever it is. Can you just try that first before you log a ticket? I'm really going to be interested to see what self-service as a percentage will do in terms of cutting it down, in terms of the tickets. Now, even if it's only a 5 or 10% cut down of tickets that actually get logged because they solved it themselves, I actually think over a whole year, it's huge. It's huge in terms of productivity. And just remember, a lot of people will be thinking, but isn't self-service already out there? It is, but it's actually not in ConnectWise and AutoTask. But if you go to ticketing systems like Zendesk and ServiceNow and these enterprise ones, self-service has been there for ages. But here's the thing, it's only in the web portal. You have to be in the web portal to get that functionality. And a stat that actually came out of Freshdesk is that and they've got millions of users that use their software in the endpoint sense. They said that still to this day, 70 to 75% of all tickets are coming through via email. Now, if they're all coming through via email, no one's getting this great tech of the self-service in the portal. So that's where we're really excited about having it on the device, in the app, all linking to articles. That's definitely going to be the next evolution.
Very, very cool. So I'm putting together a poll that I know we've only got a handful of people in here, but I think it'll be interesting to just get some answers. That said, why don't you...
I'm happy to now show you push because I think this is quite interesting.
Yeah. I think push sounds interesting.
Yeah, look, I mean, it is really, we're all getting far too much email. And so any which way you can create notifications to pop up in front of users is just going to be so powerful. It is powerful, and the results are sort of speaking for themselves. So for example, in our MSP, we sent out an email, it was a little while ago, but we sent out an email saying, hey, there's a new crypto email floating around from this particular bank. Please don't click on it. But we could only email our main contacts. We don't have the right, we've got 5,000 devices and people that we manage. We can't just be blasting them all the time with these sort of messages. Our clients have never wanted us to do that. So we can only email the main contacts. So you email the main contact. I think the next day after we emailed don't click it, we had 2 people click it because we actually built a product that alerts you to crypto infections. And we're like, why is that? Well, part of it is probably because the main contact hasn't disseminated that information and actually sent it through. I mean, it could be as simple as that. So imagine push notifications going up on everyone's devices. They have to click OK to get rid of the message. You're getting a lot more eyeballs on that. And so when you are sending these messages, you really do have that flexibility. You've got a lifetime as well of how long the message is actually relevant. And after that time, if someone hasn't seen it, it doesn't display. This is where you can select sort of the color of the message. You can select groups I've created some message groups here. So you can have a test group, or you can go to the actual users themselves and go, okay, I want to send it to a particular user. If you select a user, and so let's say I have got IT support panel on my Surface right now, or on my mobile, you just select the user and it'll go to both devices. Okay. So, but you've got that granularity of sending it at an agent level as well, the message. And so that's sort of where you send it, but just going through to push, this is where you can create groups. So, you can edit a group and who do I want to add, modify the members, and who do I want to add to that group? All right. So it's all designed to be easy. So you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time you want to send a message. Of course, you've got templates as well. Now, I don't anticipate you'll be sending the same thing over and over again, but it's also helpful to sort of get you started. So you can have a template name and description and title and the content, etc. So when you actually go to send a message, if you've got template, this line comes up and you can just select that and it fills in the information, etc. And this is the example of dialogue or toast. So fantastic technology. And again, when you think of your RMM tools, they can't do that. You know, it's just a ticket logging experience, which is, it's not really what you need.
Now,
I'll jump in. I'll quickly say this is your push list, so you can actually see whether anything's been sent. These are all sort of testing, so you've got full flexibility, and we're actually updating the portal over the next couple of weeks. You can have such granularity over where these messages have gone and who's read them. It's going to be quite cool. So you can really get in there and figure out.
So you'll actually be able to see who has read my message.
Correct. Yeah.
I'll be able to go and see, oh, Ron didn't go and look at my message yet.
Correct. And this will just be changed, so it sort of drops down, and you can dig into the next layer down of that message, and that's where you start seeing who's seen it and what's happened.
All right, I just launched that poll because why not, right? Let's talk about apps real quick. The apps thing I think is really interesting because you can use the apps panel to basically provide like a shortcut to a desktop application, a website shortcut, or even if you wanted to give them some type of self-service, a local executable like a PowerShell or batch script.
Right.
That type of stuff. So, or I see you've also got RDP as an option in there.
Yeah, so, and app path lookup is important too, because the Office suite you can't launch from command line, so that enables you to do that.
All right.
So a lot of MSPs are using it for remapping drives, launching other apps. So, you know, when I talk about the RMM tool, you need an RMM tool, obviously. It's just whether or not you want that to be the one pane of glass for your end user. Now, if there is value in that RMM tool and you still need it and you want them to access it from time to time, you can leave it where it is, or you can put it in here, put a link to it, and then they can launch it that way as well. So, you know, we're not in the market to try and replace really anything that you're doing other than email as there's the first way that they log the ticket. That's who we're trying to replace. We don't like email. Email, you should go away. And I mean, they end up emailing back and forth with the ticket once they've actually logged it. But that front-end experience shouldn't be an email address. It should be something like this. So, you know, you've got to think about when you're creating this, you know, you can do whatever you want. It's not designed to just replace anything. It's there to sit in the middle and work with everything that you're doing. With Apps Panel as well, it goes down to 2 rows of 12. After that, so the app actually expands. And then after that, you just get a scroller bar if you've got more. There really is no limit to the apps, but I haven't actually.
I was just going to ask if there's a limit.
Yeah, there's no limit, but you know, I can't see why you'd need more than 12, but that'll be interesting to see who can break that record. But yeah, so the concept of it, I'll just quickly say, I'll spend 2 minutes if that's okay, Steve, just saying there's no default here with IT Apps Panel, because the concept is you are doing this per client. And so you can copy them, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, and then assign accordingly. When you go to appearances, so appearances is where you're coming in here and you're actually being able to, you know, change this is actually a new feature as well, Steve, from last time. You can sort of change the color of the IT button. If you want us to remove it, we can remove it as well. That's done in the back end. But you can change the color of the words here as well. So, you know, change that to red. You can see that changing. So it's really designed to match your color scheme. These were actually changed to gray as a default now. So there's no chance that this will ever look color-wise like anything other than your look and feel. But conceptually, under appearances, it's a default. So once you set a default, everyone sees that. We were just speaking to an MSP yesterday who actually has a product line that they sell. And that's actually under a different brand. And they're thinking, oh, fantastic. So I can have the app for those set of clients with that brand on it. And for the rest of my MSP clients, I'll have that brand. So that's conceptually why you'd have different appearance collections there. You might have a really large client that says to you, oh, can I just have my brand? Or you might be supporting an IT department and they're like, well, actually, this is pretty good. Like, can we just have our brand on it so it just fits in with everything there? Because you're just supporting the IT department, not all the end users. So buttons is the same sort of thing. This is where you can get creative. You have a default collection, but over time, if a client says, no, I want to have a particular button, which I highly suggest if they ask you to do that, because that's the stickiness thing. This is where you see more value. Then you can create buttons. This is really, for the most part, URLs. The buttons themselves that are hard-coded. You've got a feedback button. I talked about us building a feedback engine in the future. So, of course, this is just a form at the moment that goes through to an email address. You've got contact details. So conceptually, that's where you create button collections. You might have button collection 1, button collection 2. 2 is the one that goes to the outsourced department, and that's where you just set the different contact details there and just assign the button collection to all of those clients. And of course, the forms you've seen that you can allocate at that level. News is the same sort of thing, where you can create unlimited news articles under a collection. The collection is a default. Everyone sees it, unless you want to create another collection and assign that to a client, and then they'll start seeing all these different articles. Of course, under each article, you can have a start date, publish on, or an expiry date as well. So you can sort of put the date in there, URL link, etc. So, but that's just that difference there. We conceptually, they have default, whereas IT outbound is no default.
All right, so a few questions.
Go for it.
All right, real quick, I see half of you have filled out the poll. If the other half could, that would be super awesome. It is 100% anonymous. Don't worry, I'm not sharing who says anything or your contact information with Jamie. You can share that with him directly. So, first question, how many collections can somebody be a part of? Because maybe I want to make a default collection of all the Office applications and deploy that to everyone, but then I want to have a collection of applications for ABC company and also deploy that to everyone, but not put Office applications in that.
Got it. That's an interesting one. Yeah, at this point in time, it's just, what you can only be part of one collection. A collection gets assigned at that level. But that's actually a good point, is that how you could merge it potentially, so you can be a part of both. But conceptually at this point, you just have to think, well, I want that collection for that person, that collection for that group, or that department, or that client, etc. at this point.
I think it would be nice if we could stack collections. That way you can have like maybe a base collection for the company, and then have like department bolt-ons or add-ons. So that way we don't have, because, let's say as a company right now, they're not using OneNote. And then next year they all decide to start using OneNote. Well, now I've got 7 collections I have to go add OneNote to. And if we're talking about standardizing and automating and simplifying for us, shouldn't I only have to go update that once? You know what I mean? So
yeah, and what we've got here, which you're correct, and I actually really like that idea. And one of the things that that we need to understand is that we actually have a whole other product really that is an AD harvester that enables you to put that on each server to synchronize those users from AD into our portal. You then, if you've got the API version, then you can push those through to the actual PSA. So it's a great way of actually getting them through. But in the middle section, you're kind of saying, oh, there's a duplicate user there. Which one do you actually want to put through? And so that harvester just keeps running. So as you add new users, it sends you an email saying, like, update it in our platform so that it's all synchronized through. But it's not automatically going through to your PSA. You have to approve everything. But that's how you're able to. So conceptually, just in terms of deployment, because this is probably the one area that people ask us the most questions, is that let's say the environment has AD, you put the AD harvester on, you synchronize the users, you've rolled out with your RMM tool packaged up with the customer activation code to all the devices. When you do both, the end user never has to do anything. So my advice, is always do not involve the end user in this product. You can if you really want to, but you want to make sure that there's maximum utilization. So you roll it out with both. It pre-authenticates the user. So therefore, on day one of you starting support or whatever, whenever you're saying you're going to roll it out, they just get the IT button. It's working. It's all authenticated to them as a user. Now, if the environment is not AD, then you use your RMM tool, package it up with the customer activation code, roll it out to the devices, and then you simply go through to agents and in the back end. So rather, because the product itself, like any app, can ask you, oh, send me my username and password or register, etc. What we have is first name, last name, and email address. Fundamentally, is the unique identifier in our product. But what we recommend doing is that you would come through here, and this last user, meaning you wouldn't have assigned anyone, would be blank. So you'd search on the client name that doesn't have AD. Normally, if they haven't got AD for whatever reason, it's not going to be a large client. But let's say there's 10, 20 people. You just go through each one and actually assign the user. So of course, in this PSA agnostic version, you need to ensure the users are actually in there, the client's there and the users are there, so you can do this. And effectively allocate them. Bang, 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 you allocate the user, it'll authenticate, it'll activate the app, and it's done. The end user hasn't had to do anything in that scenario.
And I'm sorry, maybe I'm not following.
Go for it.
What does that have to do with my question?
So I went on a tangent. The AD harvesters to understand, to answer your question, is that leaning towards when you're allocating to groups and so on, is that we are going to be building the AD harvester to synchronize AD groups as well. And that's potentially where we can start to do more smarts around the allocation of apps panel and being able to do that. So it was just important for people watching to understand the AD harvester and how we're sort of starting to synchronize groups and those sorts of things. So rather than having groups in AD and then having to create groups in our system, I mean, we thought, well, that's obviously a bit convoluted. You'd rather just have it all seamlessly go through.
Okay, so next question. Mr. Dave asked this good question. Is app path lookup live?
It is in the portal, but the agent is rolling out as over the next, I think it's over next week, we'll be rolling that out. So that you need the updated agent. So if you have a look at the agent here, 18.45, it'll be 18.47 that'll enable you to get that sorted out.
Is there a way for us to force pushing out the 18.47? Because that is the one thing holding Dave up from onboarding this thing to all of his customers.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So we need to release it. And so we'll just notify you when that's ready to go, mate. We'll send you an email. Well, today. You are speaking to the future, of course, in Australia at this point. So yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. But it's coming very, very soon. We understand the importance of that one.
Okay. Now, let me see. Got to figure out how to ask the next question. So Matt said, if you're tracking user level stuff, can't the forms fill in the information automatically rather than having the user type that in every time?
Well, it does with the log ticket. So it's effectively, it's tracking who you are. So they really, in the log ticket sense, are just putting ticket type, subtype, etc., depending on how you've configured the app. So it knows who you are. So they don't have to start typing their name in every time of who they are. So we are tracking it at that level. But forms is ad hoc information. So you're getting the user information when the ticket logs through, but forms are fundamentally just ad hoc additional information that you need. So,
for example, and I'm sorry to interrupt. So, Matthew, you said, can't the forms fill in the info? I think maybe you're thinking like ticket details. from like who's creating the ticket. But Jamie and I were discussing, what if we wanted to create a ticket specifically for, I've hired a new person, here is that new person's details. Can you please get them set up with an email address, Office 365, a new computer, Active Directory, set them up in our line of business applications. The list goes on and on and on. So obviously that person can't send you a ticket because they're not set up. And more importantly, these people should be telling you before that person even officially works there. So that way everything's ready for day one.
Correct. And look, the app is authenticated at that user level. That's why once it's assigned and set up, the app itself knows who you are. So when the ticket is logged, it's coming through as Jamie Warner, my email. The user doesn't have to fill in that information each time. Like conceptually, when we first invented this, we were trying to create something where you're trying to get as much information as you can without the user having to fill it in. So I get the sentiment of where you're coming from. And that's why we also include the host name in the ticket body as well. So we're starting to get that granular detail without them filling it in.
So I thought now would be a good time to share the results of the poll. So I asked, I want to say 4 questions in this poll, 5 questions in this poll. Same thing, right? How many end users are the clients, are the MSPs supporting today? And it looks like 250 to 499 is the most common range there. Now that's end users, not devices, Jamie. Mm-hmm. It's kind of split down the middle of, would this be helpful for you today? So half of them said yes, half of them said no. I asked what they think are reasonable. Yeah, I mean, what do you think a reasonable cost per user for you to deploy this, assuming it could speed up time to resolution, reducing costs or burdens on your end for labor? And for the most part, people all agree 50 cents or less is what they would expect per user. Push notifications seem the most helpful, and the app shortcuts seem the least helpful.
Is that in? Oh, right. Oh, I see. Oops. Scroll down.
No, to be fair, everything was the least helpful for someone. But the app shortcuts was the most least helpful.
The key thing you've got to remember, and this is the one bit that it's hard for you to do a poll on, is, and I do say to people, if you're going to bother trialing this product, you have to, ideally, you don't have to, but if you really want the proper feedback, remember, you're not the ones using it. You get the result of it, but you're not the ones using it. So I do advise that you give it to at least like one friendly main contact and get their feedback, because I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised. And in terms of value and being helpful, just remember email. So email is the bad guy in our world. When a user sends you an email, which inevitably does not have the right information because there's no structure for them to give you the right information, there's no forms, there's no type, subtype, they're just kind of having to wing it. If you have to go back to them saying, hey, can you give me this extra bit of info? Everyone in that equation is now wasting productivity, right? So the value proposition for the end user, that's why their life is easier, because they know they're wasting time going back and forth with you. And this is, no one's ever really argued with this point across all the MSPs we speak of. Like, there's no way 100% of email tickets have the right information. It's just, they never do. So when you're going back and forth, that's why when you sort of go, is the tool helpful as a conceptual question? For an end user, the resounding answer is always yes. It is why I bothered to commercialize this product, because I thought the feedback is too good for me not to do that from an end user level. So don't let me tell you how amazing it is. Let the end user tell you. And I haven't met anyone yet that's given it to an end user and gone, oh my God, they hate it. I mean, maybe if they're a technophobe and they just don't even have a computer, maybe. But a 99.9%, because I guess you can never say 100, are going to come back saying, thank you. Yes, this is a lot easier. It's made my life, screenshots, all those little basic things, filling in the form. Great, cool, because I hated filling in the Word document and then having to save it and then send it back to you again. And I mean, it's all a bit convoluted. So probably just a point there in regards to if you are going to trial it. Of course, there's a 30-day free trial. Give it to that end user, let them give you that feedback. And it has been quite funny for me because, of course, we've been doing it so long, it just seems so obvious. And so when I get partners that trial it, they then give it to an end user, and then they have that light bulb moment. It still gives me a little bit of joy when I see that, because it really is. It's such a different perspective at an end user level.
Well, I always love having, I'm going to say, controversial vendors on here. And by controversial, I don't think what you're doing is controversial. I think it's like people either love you or hate you. And I don't know why that is. But it's always interesting because I really like what you're doing. And, is this going to be for everyone? No. But for the people that really do think it's for them, I think, get that 30-day trial, test it out with get one of your clients to agree to be your guinea pig. So here, I think this is probably the coolest part. Jamie, I beat him up a little bit a while back about pricing, and he agreed to extend everyone that is a member of MSP webinars some really fantastic pricing for this tool. So if you are at all interested in checking it out, I mean, this is great pricing. I mean, $300 a month if you've got 2,500 or so agents to deploy, and it's only 150 for 250 agents. And I know, again, earlier I said it sucks that all of these software as a service companies are coming after our hard-earned cash, right? But if for $150 a month, or 189, because like I said, most everyone was in the 250 to 499, right? So let's say 189. $189 a month. If I can reduce the labor cost on my end, how much would you say you've reduced your labor cost when you deploy this for a new MSP partner? How much time do you think they save?
We reduced phone calls by about 50%. So now most of the effort, we get 110, 120 tickets a day. And this is not RMM tickets. These are help me tickets. That's what happens, unfortunately, as you scale, you get a lot more work. And why productivity becomes so important, but it is important regardless. But that's one side of it. So in terms of time you're saving, we were probably wasting between 3 to 5 minutes on every ticket when they were coming through on email. And to be fair, if a ticket comes through on the phone and it's a change request ticket, you could also waste about 3 to 5 minutes, because whilst it's great customer service to say, hey, it's a nice day and great, and then they're on there going, oh, I need to, can you assign me to that mailbox? It's like, well, you could have logged a ticket and we didn't have to just have this conversation at either end. Now, over a whole year, those 3 to 5 minutes, you can just times it out. So 3 to 5 minutes times the number of tickets that you're getting across a day, times it by 260 days, divide it by 60 to get it into an hours scenario, and then you can times that by the rate of which you charge out, and you can start to work out wasted productivity. And so for us, it was extremely high. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of productivity that was being wasted if you were ordinarily going to charge the time out elsewhere. Because so conceptually, most MSPs are charging monthly fees. That's fine, but every time you save time, it means you can get another client, and the incremental time that you have to hire another person slows down. And so that's the huge benefit. But of course, remember, for those prices, how much is it to get more referrals? How much would you pay? How much would you pay to be able to win new business like what we've been doing? And in terms of the referrals and the customer satisfaction side, if everyone's measuring their CSAT and NPS scores, how much would you pay to just pump that up a little bit? Because if you pump it up a bit, you're going to get more referrals. So you got to look at all of it. Like it's not one thing; it's many things, which is the cool thing about it.
So my statement I'll say to that is, let's say 500 users, and if we look at what GMS Live Expert said, 40% utilization is what they expect to see on their help desk tickets. So at 500 users, they expect to see 200 tickets per month, which is their max, is what they expect to see for outsourced help desk services. So at 200 tickets, let's just round up to 5 minutes of time wasted per ticket. That's potentially 16 hours a month you're saving of time that you can now have technicians be doing something more valuable for you, the business owner. Is it going to work like that with every single MSP? No. Some people may save more time. Some people may save less time. But it's at least a good way to kind of gauge, like, okay, how many end user created tickets do I get every month? Multiply that by 0.08, and that's how much time I'm going to save.
So, Steve, exactly, well articulated. And here's another concept. And one of the reasons why we didn't go for the couple of the PSA products way back when is partly because we had an off-the-shelf product that did auto allocation and load balancing. This product was basically free. It was so cheap. It was a ticketing product. When we went there, we built our whole model around that because of that product. And so those PSAs don't actually do auto allocation and load balancing. So if you've got 5 engineers and you're getting all these tickets, it's filling up your cups accordingly to who's got the least amount of tickets, right? So the engine is powering the allocation of the work, not the actual people. And that's a good point around the productivity, is that a lot of people are having to triage a lot of tickets. It comes in with no information, and you have to select type and subtype and send it on. So this is the power of getting that information correct at the time, because then you can route it to wherever it needs to go, and that triage lessens and lessens over time, which is great. So just in terms of this pricing, if you go for this community deal, you are locked into that pricing structure. So you can start at 250 agents, which what is that divided? 149 divided by 250. I can't do the math. So that's at 59 cents, but the next one down immediately drops you down to, which is what the poll said, 500 is 37 cents, right? And then it just obviously keeps going down from there. So, but if you get in on this pricing as part of MSP webinars and you're a member of MSP webinars, so you have to go through Steve's portal to register for it. All of that pricing is your pricing forever.
Yes. And so that means as you continue to grow and you continue to work with Invarosoft, when you eventually get to 5,000 agents, you're now paying 7 cents an agent.
Yep.
Instead of twice that.
Correct.
So I can't stress enough that, test it out. You get 30 days free, test it out. Get a client to agree to be your guinea pig. Build an app portal for them, a support portal, app portal, news portal, the whole deal, and try it out. That's that. So, Jamie, I think it's like tomorrow your time.
You are, guys, you're all speaking of the future, and I can tell you we're still here. So all is good.
This is good. Yeah, so it's got to be like 4 a.m. where Jamie's at. He's in Australia. and I really appreciate you doing this at the worst possible time for you.
Hey, we go overboard for our partners. We'll give you 1,000,000% passion and effort. So it's absolutely a pleasure to come on board, mate. And as you can see, I'm wearing a suit, and it's 4 a.m. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling good.
And to remind you guys, he got here at 2:45 in the morning, his time. So he left the bar with his suit on from yesterday, is what I can only assume. He's
Correct.
still wearing yesterday's clothes. He's sobering up, and so again, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you being here for this.
Yeah, no
For
problem.
those of you, for those of you still here, Monday is a holiday. There's no breakout session on Monday. There's no webinar on Tuesday. Okay, so Wednesday we're going to talk about how to price your managed services offerings. Thursday we have a webinar where we're going to have SolarWinds come in and educate us about their SolarWinds backup product. And then Friday we're going to come in and we're going to talk about everyone's favorite thing to look at, master service agreements. It's going to be great. We're all going to put our lawyer hat on, and we're going to talk about our MSAs and how many of us are successful at having every single one of our clients sign one, and why it's so important to do so, and all that kind of stuff. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. Jamie, thank you again. Invarosoft looks fantastic. Everyone should give it a try. 30 days free. If anyone wants to chat with me further about Invarosoft, I'm going to hop into the Zoom room right after this, and we're gonna talk it up. You all have
So any questions you've got, sales@invarosoft.com. Happy to answer anything that comes out of your discussion with Steve. And I'll just say to close, thanks again for your time, Steve. We really appreciate it. We think you're doing amazing things. The value of MSP webinars, being able to communicate with each other and resolve issues and talk about all the things that are challenging is incredibly powerful. And I think we can all see the success that Steve's having there with this approach. It's needed. It's innovative. It's a new approach of doing it. So congratulations to you as well, mate. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, everybody. Have yourselves a fantastic day and weekend. Take care.